Namaskar. I am Dr. Nalini Avinash Wagmare, working as Associate Professor at Tilak Maharashtra Vidyapeeth, Pune. Today's our topic is related to origin of state. So in this topic, we have to study the different authors, scholars, researcher given a different opinion about the origin of state, as well as under that divine origin of state, contract theory, patriarchal theory, joint family system, then other history, what we say, scholars' opinion about the origin of state under that Hobbes law, Kautilya, kingship, and few references we have to study. Then, what was the origin of state according to Hindu mythological and other books? So here we find that we have occasional speculation on the origin of state in Mahabharata and the Dignanika, and though these works belong to different centuries and religions, their version shows a marked similarity. The Plato's as well as Rousseau's origin of state also given a different type of information. Then law of the jungle exists in origin of in earlier time when the origin of state we are looking for that. The Shanti Parva goes on to narrate that society flourished without king or law court for a long time, but later somehow there was a moral degeneration. So people fell from rectitude, greed, selfishness, cupidity began to sway their mind, and the earthly paradise which they had been enjoying was soon converted into a hell. The law of jungle began to prevail. The strong devoted the weak, as is the order of the day among the Matsayana. So Matsayana Purana given this type of information. Then after that, when the people are confusing, suppressed by the strong, that time most of the people went to the god and they begged that to protect this one. That time gods then became alarmed and decided to remedy the situation when men went out in a deputation to pray for relief. Then Brahmadeva, the chief god, thought over the matter and came to the conclusion that human society can survive only if a code of law was framed and enforced through the instrumentality of a king. So he composed a comprehensive code, created a son named Viraraj, appointed him king, and then agreed to obey his orders. Then the divine origin of, according to Brahmadeva, the appointed king. Then some historians given a different opinion about the origin of state. It's a mutual contract. So they state that even in the Parva also mentioned, we have a slightly divergent account of the origin of state, which seems to refer to an unsuccessful contract at one stage. People were tired of law of the jungle, which prevailed for a long time, and entered into a mutual contract that persons guilty of unsocial acts like misappropriation and adultery would be expelled from society. We are expressly told that in order to inspire mutual confidence, they entered into a universal social contract to guarantee the agreement. Then we are, however, told that people still continue to be unhappy, probably because there was no king or government to enforce the contract. Then they approached the creator with a request to appoint a king who, on the one hand, should be worth the reverse of the community, and on the other hand, should be able to protect the people. Then the creator straightway appointed the Manu as their king. Uh, Again, the origin of state, we find different opinion. In the Mahabharata also stated that shows that the state was regarded as a divine institution. King's right to govern was partly due to his divine creation and partly due to the agreement of the subject to be governed by him in order to terminate the anarchy. So in Mahabharata, the king divine power mentions. Then in the Middle Ages, when the king was regarded as a representative of God, ruling by divine right, Islam also shared a similar view, for it regarded king as a shadow of the God. Then some Buddhists also say that Buddhists did not believe in God. So Brahmadeva, as the creator of the first king and code, does naturally not figure in it. But we are told that in the dim and distant past, there was a golden age when men who had ethereal and refulgent bodies lived in virtue and happiness. Somehow later on, after mythological references, he, after the people request, people then elected him to be their king, one person as a king, then agreeing to give him a part of their paddy in return of for his services. Jaina literature also given not given any more information about these things also. Then Kautilya give a few information about the origin of state. Kautilya refers to the problem of the origin of state only incidentally during a discussion of space among themselves. One party there argues that government came into exist to counteract the law of the jungle that prevailed in society. People themselves selected Manu as their king and agreed to pay him the necessary taxes. Then Narada and Brihaspati also government came into existence to put an end to the anarchy and all other things. But this two Smritis give information that uh, king he recognized a quasi divinity in the case of a virtuous king. This may suggest that he was not much inclined to believe in the theory of golden age of social contract. Then Tripitakas also give a little information about the divine state as a divine institution. A survey of the above passage shows that whatever may be the state of affairs in the mythological past, Hindu thinkers held that state was an indispensable institution or the orderly existence and progress of society in the imperfect world as known to us in historic times. A country without government cannot even exist. The idea of a golden age is accepted only in some section of the Mahabharata and Buddhist literature. Then the writers on polity only to with it for some time and hasten to point out that it was soon succeeded only by a social confusion which was terminated only when God gave a king to society. They thus regarded state as a divine institution, implying thereby that it is as old as society and owed its origin to that socio-political instinct which is twin born with man. Then people elected him to be their king. The Dharma Sutras give information about this, and Dharma Sutra writers, when they aware that king is a servant of the people, charged with the duty of protection, 60% tax being his wage. So this mentioned in the Mahabharata as well as Dharma Sutras. Hindu writers further, no doubt, further developed the theory of contract as was done in the West. Probably they had realized that it would not be fully applicable to the origin of government and society. Contract theory. So after divine origin of the state, few also scholars given information that not only divine origin, they state that first the agreement started between state as well as people. So first agreement took place among the members of a community which was still in a state of nature. Contract is possible only in a state where mutual rights, obligations are respected. And this is obviously impossible in a society where the law of the jungle prevails. So Hobbes and Locke, they have also given the different opinion about the contract theory of state. It would be, however, interesting to compare ancient Indian theory of contract with similar theories advanced in the West. So, briefly, the contract theory, according to Hobbes' views on origin of state, he stated they agree to surrender part of their rights to the sovereign in his books. Even Hobbes also given same opinion in his book, while compared to uh, in Hindu version, the Hindu also agreed that one. Then Locke, the nature of state, he mentioned that people as a general rule obeyed the laws of reason and nature and respected one another's persons and property. The individual could act both as a general and executor of his own decrees, which created certain inconvenience. So the law of nature was known to all, still owing to difference of intelligence and conflicts of interest. Disputes arose to the method of its enforcement, which gave rise to confusion and uncertainty in life. Then, after the Locke and as well as Hobbes' views, we find that To put an end to it, people entered into a covenant, surrendered their rights to enforce the law of nature, and organize the government, which was also bound by terms of original content. So, Hindu writer suggests that somehow there was fall from the golden age of primeval period, owing to aggregating the upper hand in human nature. So, Hindu writers seek to regulate his powers by the provisions of the original divine code only, no mutual contact. It will thus be seen that desire to put an end to anarchy and evolve a better type of society and government are stated to the chief grounds of for people entering into the original content that brought government into existence. As well, we have to find that uh, Locke, Hobbes, as well as other Western scholars' opinion on origin of state, nature of state. So, the Indian ancient Indian writers did not live in an age of rationalism. That is the one thing we have to keep in our mind. Then the like Locke, Rousseau, they look at the question from a semi-religious, semi-sociological point of view, whereas we consider Hindus or Hindu mythological books not given information about it. They observe, for instance, that people offer obedience and taxes in return for protection and service they expect from the government. If the king's government fails in its duty, they permit the people to remove the king. So these are the original origin of state. Then the nature of state. Again, the various author given a different opinion about the origin as well as nature of state. It is argued that people in distant past willingly entrusted government powers to an individual, either because he was a priest who would ensure divine help and favors, or because he was a magician who could command rain, because he was a doctor who could cure patients. It is suggested that individuals who thus happened to gain ascendancy over the minds of their contemporaries managed to retain it by the use of force, which they could exercise with ease owing to their preeminent position already recognized on a large scale. So patriarchal, some other theories also there. Patriarchal joint family seems to have been the origin of state stated by some historians. For example, the evidence of the comparative philology shows that even when the Aryans were in their original home, they were living in a joint families consisting of grandfather, father, uncles, nephew, sons, daughter-in-law. The evidence of Homer's also joint families were sometimes so big as to include 200 or 300 persons. The patriarchy of joint family very wide powers over its members. He could place, sell, even kill any person under his protest for an offense committed by him. So later on started the patriarchal society. The position of the patriarch in prehistoric time was more or less like that of a king amongst all Indo-European communities. The senior member of the senior most family in such a village was regarded with great reverence by the whole community and used to be entrusted with most of the governmental functions to be discharged, no doubt in consultation with other elder persons of the locality. Then in Janamanasa seem to have corresponded to village consisting of people claiming a common descendant. A number of such villages joined together by a bond of kinship seem to have constituted Vis. Its chief was known as Vishapati, means village head. Several Visas made a Jana, then Janapati, which had its own Janapati or the king. So Vedic Jana probably correspond with the tribe, which with the and Janapati, Janamana with the generation. Then the Indo-Aryan community state was evolved in India in prehistoric times out of the institution of the joint family. The power of the kings gradually became more and more existent as state became larger and larger. Then what was the kingship of this time? The institution of joint family thus gradually led to the evolution of kingship. Molestation of women had to be stopped and the peaceful enjoyment of property had to be ensured. This could be guaranteed only if the rise of institution of state. The institution of the family with the notion of the family property thus played its own part in the origin of the state. So these are the few reference books you can refer. So in this lecture, we have studied some historical documents give information about the origin of state. as well as some mythological books, Mahabharata, Buddhist texts, and foreign like Locke, Hobbes' views on contact theory, as well as how the patriarchal family, as well as joint family, even Vishapati or village people made a important role in ancient time to origin of the state. So in this lecture, very briefly information given about the origin of state. These are the few reference books you can refer for written study. Altekar book, State Government in Ancient India. D.N. Zha book, also Ancient India.